The Buffalo Sabres need help on their blue line. What are some options for them to make a trade for this coming Friday at the trade deadline? Got a bunch to roll through coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you listen to your podcast. That does include watching us on our YouTube channel. Watch us there, like and subscribe, and throw us a comment too if you would like. The best way, though, to reach us, question, comment, discussion, would be in our Locked On Sabres Discord. And if you would like access to that, in addition to ad-free versions of this show, among other perks, right now is the best time to get into our Everydayers Club. Become an Everydayer right now on the Locked On Sabres podcast with lockedonsabres.supercast.com. Go to that site and put the code DEADLINE in, and you'll get your first month free. And if you like it, then you can continue on. And if you don't, then you can cancel it. But I think you will. Give us a shot. Come hang out with us, especially during these games in our Discord. So that is all coming up today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Defenseman, what the options are for Jarmo Kekalainen and the Buffalo Sabres is they have a need in terms of a depth defenseman. A third pair defenseman that I believe also should hopefully possess the capability of playing 18 to 20 minutes a night if needed, should something happen to one of the guys in the top four. Many of these guys are not going to be great ideas for that in a vacuum, but hopefully are better than what the Sabres have right now at their disposal. I do want to talk about a little bit later on in the show what Conor Timmins might be in terms of, we've talked about how Alex Tuch is kind of like the Sabres' own rental, and that might mean something to whether they make a trade at forward or not at the deadline. Well, maybe you should treat Timmins coming back from injury like a rental third pair defenseman, but I do want to get into how poorly it's gone for him when he's been on the ice. He was practicing, though, this week on Monday, so maybe closer to return after breaking his leg in the fall than he has been before. So some familiar names, Rasmus Ristolainen. We have talked a lot about Tyler Myers, so going to leave him out for this show because we've already spent a lot of time on him. And then the likes of Brandon Carlo, Jamie Alexeyeak, Logan Stanley, Zack Whitecloud. These are all names I think should be on the radar for the Sabres, and some I like a lot better than others. We'll go through them today here on the podcast. Before we get into all of them, though, there have been some rumors that have been circulating about the Sabres and really the trade deadline in general. We spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks about Robert Thomas as a trade idea of the St. Louis Blues, and Elliot Friedman today on 32 Thoughts pointed to that it is maybe more likely now than ever that Thomas will get dealt from the Blues, their number one center. And in part, he said because Doug Armstrong, longtime GM in St. Louis, who is retiring at the end of the year, and Alex Steen is taking over, has threatened to make a big move like this, but hasn't pulled the trigger on it. And what he said is that why he might think it happens now and it hasn't before is that's the type of trade that can be hard to do. It's hard to swallow that pill, a player of that caliber, and he might not want to put a decision that big on Alex Steen the day he walks in the doors, what to do with a player of that ilk. So I guess if that logic makes sense, even if it doesn't, if that's what he's hearing about the Blues and why they might do it, okay. Now, why you might even feel more willing to make that trade, other than he's a great player and he's on an affordable contract and he's in the smack dab prime of his career at 27 years old, is that the Montreal Canadiens are one of the most mentioned teams when it comes to Robert Thomas. And I'm thinking about Montreal. What do they want? That's the team you are most likely to play in the postseason. That's a team that if you remain this good, that is going to be in your hair for years and years. And you want Robert Thomas to be a part of that equation on their side of it for the next 5 years that he's under contract. I'd rather have him on my side. And I think he's willing. I think he's worth the price. So he is my favorite idea all week. The Sabre, I think what it would mean to the team, how much better it could make their forward group, help the power play. You'd have to figure out a little bit of the mechanics of who's playing center and who's playing wing, because he does play center. But I think that is not enough to stop me from getting the best player traded at the deadline. And right now, I feel like Robert Thomas is the most likely best player to be traded at the trade deadline. So that happened today. And the other thing that was mentioned by Chris Johnston of Sportsnet is that there will be a large Sabres contingent in Toronto tonight for Maple Leafs and Flyers, and that includes assistant general manager Marc Bergevin. Those are two sellers teams. And even though I normally don't get up in arms about, these teams had scouts at the Vancouver game yesterday, because teams have scouts all over the league all the time. But when I see the assistant GM is going, that makes me perk up just a little bit. Okay, maybe something here. So those two teams they both should be sellers. I think there's a very high likelihood that Philadelphia is going to be a seller. And I think we're still trying to figure out whether or not Toronto is going to be a seller. They should be. They are third last in the Eastern Conference. They actually are 2 points behind Philly. It's just not the type of thing that Toronto normally does. So will they sell? Will Philly sell? Maybe they both do. There are a lot of options to talk about for these teams, and they mostly lie in the position that we're going to talk about today, on the blue line. And I want to start with an old friend that was one of my least favorite Sabres of all time. He played tons of minutes. I never thought he was really all that good. Rasmus Ristolainen, who is still playing in Philly, 4 years, has not made the playoffs, by the way. He, at the moment, last time I checked this out, this was true. He has Jeff Skinner used to have this title. Now it's Ristolainen. The most games played in NHL history without ever appearing in the postseason is Ristolainen. Now, my complaint with Ristolainen has always been he plays in a role that's too big for him. If you had him on your third pair or even your fourth defenseman, low-end second pair, not maybe being exposed all the time to the best matchups, you might get away with him being pretty decent. And that's the argument I am seeing for why you should trade for Rasmus Ristolainen. And I go back and forth on that, because on one hand, I think, well, yeah, the Sabres have four great defensemen, Power, Samuelsson, Byram, Dahlin, not necessarily in that order. Why would Ristolainen play over any of them? Right. I guess my trepidation is the guy's been in the league for a decade, and no coach has ever decided to say that. We're not going to play him 20 minutes a night. We're going to play him 16 minutes a night. It's never happened. No coach ever. And lots of coaches have had opportunity to do it. Maybe the blue lines around them weren't as good as the Sabres team, and that should definitely factor into the equation. But the fewest minutes he has ever played in a season where he played at least half the games was 1901 in Philly. And honestly, I read some numbers on that. Like, in that year where he played 19 minutes, in the year he played 20 minutes last year, as opposed to he averaged 24 minutes tonight with Buffalo. Those seasons were actually not that bad. Shutdown role, wasn't asked to do anything offensively, wasn't asked to drive possession, just be solid defensively. And he gave you modest results. It went okay. That's on a second pair role. Here, if I can get him down to a third pair role, then I'm more open to it. I'm warming to the idea. And that's a lot for me because, again, I think he is more on the hook for the playoff drought than any single player during the Sabres playoff drought. He played the most minutes, and he was bad the whole time. Not all his fault. Again, coaches and GMs kept propping him up to something that was more than I thought he was, because he was big and he was strong and he had a hard shot and he could skate and he looked the part. But it just never came to fruition. Hockey sense to me was never really there. Now, in terms of the contract, in terms of what he's been this year, he's been very poor this year. But he has played a little bit more in that elevated role again, and he's been doing it on a bad team. That's going to be a common theme, by the way, with all the defensemen we talk about today, because that's, in large part, the guys that are available. The guys that are available on Friday are players that have had really poor years on really poor teams that are probably playing in a role that is too much for them. So if you're Jarmo Kekalainen, you have to parse through that group and decide which guy is the most likely to give me the good results playing in a sheltered role. And I do believe there is an argument for that with Ristolainen. My concern just would be someone in the top 4 has a bad game or two, and now I'm trying to make Ristolainen back into a 20, 21-minute a night defenseman. And that terrifies me because I've never seen a coach not do that with him. They always end up doing it. And that would scare me. The contract's not bad. I don't have more than one more year of commitment. It's $5 million, $5.1 million. It would feel a little more comfortable for me if they were to take some money back, Philadelphia. I hope that they would do that. If they didn't, I wouldn't be interested. I would take him at $3 million, maybe, or $2.5 million would be even better. But $5 million for next year to me is almost a non-starter. I'm opening up to the idea of him being on the team, but not at that number. That number needs to come down. And any of these guys, including Ristolainen, what is the cost going to be for the Sabres? I think you can use Connor Murphy as an example. Connor Murphy of the Chicago Blackhawks was traded today. He goes to Edmonton, who's trying to contend and make another run to the Stanley Cup final. And it cost them a second-round pick. And half of his salary was retained. 4.4 was knocked down to 2.2 for Edmonton, and it cost them a second. In 2028, by the way. So a second in 2 years. And I think that is probably about what most of these guys would cost, if especially you want to retain salary. That's Ristolainen. One other guy I want to talk about from the Toronto-Philly game tonight that I wonder if Marc Bergevin and the Sabres brass are watching really closely. Brandon Carlo of the Maple Leafs. Right shot defenseman, which, by the way, Ristolainen is as well. $4.1 million. He, like Risto, is under contract for the rest of this year and then also next year. So same deal with Toronto. 4.1 is better than 5.1 with Risto. I would like, though, if Toronto would retain something there, maybe $1 million of the 4.1. This is, again, a player that has not had a very strong year, and he's playing a little bit lesser in terms of minutes per night than Ristolainen is, but not by a crazy amount. Risto is right around that 20 mark, and Carlo's at 1930. So it's almost the same. But historically, he has been a guy that plays less than 20 minutes a night. He has not played over 20 minutes a night in 6 years on a team. Boston for a long time, eventually got to sheltered minutes, and then Toronto a little bit of the same. Physical, defensive defenseman, has not given Toronto the best play this year. Bad team, though, and that could play into it. Like, I do think he would be a big upgrade over Jacob Bryson's of the world on the Sabres' third pair. Would he cost you a second? Would he cost you a third? Maybe in that territory. I wonder if Toronto would be willing to take a bath on him, though, after only 57 games played with the Leafs over 2 years. He's also had a little bit of a health problem this year, but right now I think he's good. At least he's been playing lately and playing minutes fine. The Maple Leafs traded a first-round pick for him, and that first-round pick is maybe going to turn into a top 10 pick this year. It's top 5 protected. So if Toronto falls between 5 and 10, it's a steep price to pay. And would they be willing to trade him for a second or a third-round pick before they've even given away the first-round pick they gave up for him? That is what stops me. But I'm seeing him on all these trade lists, so I guess he's worth talking about. And a lot of his advanced numbers are not that strong. They're better than Ristolainen, though. So when you compare those two, specifically the guys that are playing tonight in Toronto, I'd prefer Carlo over Ristolainen personally for a Sabres third pair guy. Both right shot guys. Age-wise, Ristolainen, by the way, 31 and Carlo 29. When we come back, two monsters, Jamie Alexeyev and Logan Stanley, and a guy that was a trade idea for a long time in Vegas, now is on a new team and is maybe back on the market in Zack Whitecloud. Coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and that one position that you have to fill to get it going. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all those boxes, less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, it's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your post the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, I expect the Sabres to trade it for a defenseman by Friday. Going through some of those ideas on the lower end today. I love a Justin Falk idea. Great player. I not as interested in Dougie Hamilton. These are some of the big names at the position that should be available this week. And I don't know that there's much argument to go that much into the position when you've got 4 guys solid at the top, and they will have to decide what to do with Bo Byram at some point, whether or not that is going to be to pay him long-term. He's only going to have 1 year left in his contract after this year. I like Falk as an idea. I mean, he would be exciting, but I don't think at the cost that it would be. And Hamilton, because of the type of defenseman he is and the caliber and that he's having a down year, I wouldn't be interested in him. Those are the big ideas. Back to the smaller end ideas, third pair guys, 15 minutes a night, maybe. There are 2 giant defensemen beyond even Tyler Myers. We talked about, and all these guys are big. Carlo, Ristolainen are big guys. Myers is a big guy. Jamie Oleksiak and Logan Stanley are 2 names that I want to talk about for a moment here. They are big. Oleksiak, one of the biggest players in the league, 6'7", 250 pounds. His nickname is the Big Rig. 33 years old. He's had a long time third pair role here in the NHL. And when he's played sheltered minutes, it's gone okay for him. I think when he's been in that role, like he was in Dallas a few years ago, where he was up to a second pair role, it doesn't go as well. And again, that's part of it for me, is predicting not just who's going to play well in the third pair role for the Sabres, but who's going to play well if somebody gets hurt in the top 4 and they got to go up there. Oleksiak at this stage in his career, I'm not optimistic about it. He is a very physical guy. He's still very good defensively. He cannot move the puck anymore. Not that he was ever that great at it, but there's nothing going on that front. I mean, you're not getting the level of any defenseman that I would say is in the Sabres organization right now that has appeared for them this year. Like, he would be the worst puck mover that's appeared for the team all season long. But are you okay with that if he is that good in his own end, that good physically? I don't think he is that good physically. I think he is that good defensively. I think he's fine. So it's not my favorite idea, but it is a name to keep an eye on. Seattle is looking to move him, and he could be an idea that Jarmo Kekalainen pulls the trigger on, because he's also going to be really cheap. Like, he's not costing you a second-round pick. He's probably costing you a third, a fourth, maybe something like that. He is, by the way, in the final year of a 5-year deal at $4.6 million per. And in my mind, again, it's going to be this case with a lot of these teams. I'd love for Seattle to retain salary on that. I wonder if they would, though, because they're in a competition here, and they're still trying to compete as well. That might be a bad sign for trading for him also. Why is a team in a playoff spot right now in Seattle willing to trade him away off the roster? And again, I can see why they wouldn't, but he's on all these lists, and it's talked like he's expected to be moved. That's the rumor. So Oleksiak, not my favorite idea. And I guess I've really soured on this idea even more. I like the Ristolainen and Carlo ideas better than both of these two, and I'm going to like more the next idea more after this one. I talked about Logan Stanley when we first started broaching the idea of trade topics a couple of weeks ago. I'm totally out. Totally out on Logan Stanley. The giant 6'7" defenseman of the Winnipeg Jets, who is physical and mean, and you better not get in a fight with him, because it could go really bad for you. Logan Stanley, the more I read about and watch a little bit of what he's all about, he's the opposite of Oleksiak. He is horrific in his own end. He is terrible at stopping rushes. He is bad at getting the puck out and turns it over relentlessly. He's not giving you much in that department. So you're asking, okay, well then what value might he have to me? The reason why he might have some value around the league is, one, just how mean he is, how he'll wreck people and stand up for teammates, all of that, which isn't the same as being good defensively, by the way. It's not the same. It's that combined with, well, he's scoring goals this year. At his size, he's got a hard shot, and that's led to this year 9 goals in 58 games. However, in 5 years previous, he had 5 goals total. So it's a 1-year anomaly. Will it continue? Maybe. It, to me, is the only thing that makes him serviceable, though, is, well, if he's going to score me a goal every 6th game, which is about the rate he's on right now, then, all right, I can afford him being in my lineup, maybe. But I don't want to bet on that continuing. I want to bet on that regressing, and I don't think having a defenseman that is that poor in his own end when he's not a great puck mover either is all that great of an idea. I am out on the Logan Stanley idea, and you might see his name come up over the next couple of days if you see any numbers on him. And watch Winnipeg a couple of times this week. I did that twice. I watched 2 Winnipeg Jets games in the last week and a half. So I know it's a small sample, and I've watched a little of him in past years. I don't want to make a whole judgment on 2 games, but I certainly was not impressed. I'll say that. He's not very fast either, which you might expect at that size. One more idea that I do like. In fact, I like this idea a lot. And it might also be cheap. By the way, Stanley is a left shot defenseman, if you're wondering. And Oleksiak is also a left shot defenseman. So those guys might have to play on their opposite side. This guy is a right shot defenseman. And he used to be, all the analytics people loved him because he had great numbers when he was in Vegas. Right shot defenseman, 29 years old, Zack Whitecloud. By the way, Stanley, final year of his deal, so it's a rental. Whitecloud, meanwhile, is on a long-term deal, but it's very affordable. And you're also almost through it. He's into year 4. So you have 2 more years after this season under contract for the Flames defenseman. But he only makes $2.75 million per year. Super cost affordable. Easy on the cap. 29 years old. He's having a really rough time in Calgary. It's not going well. And it hasn't really gone well all year for him. Part of that, though, is he's playing a career high in minutes. Similar thread to these other guys. He's playing a career high in minutes. And that expanded role is not going well. Why, in part, he was an analytics darling in previous years was sheltered minutes on a great team, and it went really well. What role do you think he would play here? Sheltered minutes on a great team, not making a lot of money, penalty kill, probably would go really well again. I like this idea a lot. And because he's been so poor this year, I wonder if they could get him for cheap. And Calgary, I know they just got him, but they're also so far down the standings now that his name is popping back up, and maybe he's a quick sell after they just got him. In fact, the trade that he was in, like, he was a throw-in. He was part to make the salary work even. It was the big trade with Rasmus Andersson going to Vegas with a lot of picks involved, first-round picks and prospects. Like, Whitecloud was a throw-in to that deal and was also part of making the salary work. So how tied is Calgary to him? I don't think they have to be that tied at all to him, even though they just got him. So, by the way, Calgary's playing 23 minutes a night. Like, that's crazy. He played in his Vegas career. He played, I will find that for you. I had it up and now it's closed. Zack Whitecloud, here we go. In Vegas, he averaged 17.44 per night. I don't even need him for that. I need him for 15.44 in Buffalo. And then maybe he's got to go up a little higher if something happens to somebody else. I like the Whitecloud idea a lot. I think he's a good all-around defenseman in my mind. I kind of like a little bit of everything with him. He's not a monster like these other guys. He's only 6'2", and he can hit, but he's not crazy in that department. He has put up over 100 hits 2 years in a row, but that's not always the craziest number. Shot blocker, not much offense, but here and there, but not really for the offense. It's more about the defense and being a depth defenseman that is not going to get run over. And that's what you want. Give me a third pair defenseman that doesn't get run over. Of the guys we've talked about today, Zack Whitecloud is my favorite idea. If I were to rank them, though, I'd go Whitecloud number 1, Carlo number 2, Ristolainen number 3, Oleksiak 4, Stanley 5. But those aren't obviously all the defensemen that are out there. We've talked about Myers and others. When we come back, I want to talk about one guy that's on the team right now. Can Conor Timmins just be the guy that we're talking about for all of these players? broach that subject when we return on Locked On Sabres. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sabres and Golden Knights tomorrow. By the way, Tage Thompson said he does plan on involving Jack Eichel, and Noah Hanifin for that matter, in the ceremony before tomorrow's game. So that is going to happen. We wondered a little bit if it would, and I thought it always would, and it will. So, injury update from today. Yuri Kulich is going to have another test coming up here soon to see if he can return to a higher level of fitness and then eventually game action this year. So that's coming at some point. I'm not holding my breath on Kulich, though. Get your health right. Sounds like it's been a long road here for him, and I wonder if he'll be able to come back. But that's something to monitor. And then Justin Danforth and Jordan Greenway, like they're starting to do some work, but it's a pain management thing with both of them, and they just can't kick it. Danforth broke his kneecap, and Greenway's had 2 of the sports hernia surgeries. So same thing. I'm not really bracing for either of those 2 to return yet either. Conor Timmins, though, Lindy Ruff said, had his best day today, Monday, at practice. So his return might be coming up. And with that, it's worth wondering, well, why should we trade a 3rd-round pick, a 2nd-round pick for some 15-minute-a-night defenseman when I've got Conor Timmins coming back, and that's what he was supposed to be? I hear you. Do you trust what he was earlier in the year? You might not. Same point I made with all these guys, you can make with Timmins. Because when Conor Timmins was playing for the Buffalo Sabres, the Sabres were really bad. He has not played since the 10-game win streak began. I'm sorry, that's wrong. It was 4 games into the 10-game win streak. Sorry. 4 games into the 10-game win streak was when he went out. So he has not really been a part of this Sabres team being good. He only was for like a week. So when you look at the 33 games he played, most of that was with a bad hockey team. The Sabres were a bad hockey team at the beginning of the year. So should I give him a pass for that? He was playing some minutes higher in the lineup. It might surprise you. His time on ice during those 33 games was 19-14. It's a lot. Played a lot with Bo Byram. Didn't go well at all. So he was a weird player too for me because the numbers were horrible, but I watched him and I was impressed. Like, I like the shot. I like the skating. I like the size. But I trust in the numbers, especially on defensemen, because they're hard to gauge sometimes. And the numbers hated it. Like, it was bad. They got run over. In fact, you look at the numbers on the season for the Buffalo Sabres. The highest defenseman in expected goals against per 60 minutes, what you're expected to give up every 60 minutes that you play, Conor Timmins was number 1 in a bad way. 2.99 expected goals against Conor Timmins. That's the worst among any Sabre defenseman that's played more than 3 games this year. Ryan Johnson's above him, but he only played 3 games. So, advanced stats, don't love it. I guess, again, I would be open to him being better playing 15 minutes instead of 19 minutes. I don't think him coming back should stop the Sabres from adding another defenseman at some point. I think it is perfectly acceptable to kind of throw Jacob Bryson to the side. It's gone on long enough. Sometimes he gives you good games. A lot of mistakes, though. Last time we saw him, he made 2 critical errors that cost the Sabres a game. I'm good putting him over here on the side and saying, I am going to bring Timmins back here, and I'm going to roll into the playoffs with my solid top 4, and then give myself options on the 3rd pair, plus injury insurance in Timmins, Metsa, and one other defenseman that is yet to be acquired. And then Bryson becomes your 8th guy, like really break glass in case of emergency. That is what I'd be or in Kesselring too. Sorry. So you'd have those 4 available for 2 spots. Kesselring, you might need to do game management with him down the stretch also because of the injuries and can he even hold up? That's another part of this. Like, Kesselring has had all these injury problems. Timmins, maybe he looks better in limited minutes, but also maybe he's not the same because he's coming back from a broken leg. Is he going to be the same coming back from a broken leg? I don't know. So I would like them to add one more defenseman, to add to Timmins, to add to Metsa, to add to Kesselring for that bottom pair. And I really don't want to see Jacob Bryson play for them again this season, personally. I would waive him at this point. All right. defenseman. If you got a name that you want to throw my way to talk about on the show this week, go for it. Best way to do that is in our Locked On Sabres Discord. If you are not already a part of our Everydayers Club, and if you need to be, if you want to be in our Discord, it's a lot of fun during the games. Go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com. Ad-free versions of the show as well. And right now, use the promo code DEADLINE. You get the first month free. It's a couple bucks a month. All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a game day previewing the Sabres and the Golden Knights. Got a crazy stat for you tomorrow on the Golden Knights. We'll have an injury update on Mark Stone, whether he'll be available to play in this game tomorrow, goalie matchups, and plenty more when we preview it tomorrow on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now your number one sports podcast network.